True crime content has firmly nestled itself into popular culture in recent years, and there are now more ways than ever to consume content. Whether you listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, or keep it old school and read books, we can all agree that true crime cases are almost too terrifying to be true. Number 5. The Zodiac Killer is one of the most elusive serial killers in modern history. And for over 4 decades, this mysterious killer has taunted the police and left us with one of the creepiest serial killer quotes of all time. The Zodiac sent numerous letters and ciphers to the police and media outlets, and a handful of these have been decoded and have left us with some very shocking quotes and dark insight into the mind of a criminal. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were just like any other young couple at the time. They went about their business during the day, but at night, they parked in popular lovers' lanes to sneak intimate moments together. The evening of December 20th, 1968, would forever be remembered by their families for all the wrong reasons. On that evening, Betty and David had parked up on Lake Herman Road on the outskirts of Vallejo, California, when they were approached by an unknown assailant. The man ordered them to get out of the car and fired several shots to make them move faster. Once the two had gotten out of David's station wagon, the man shot them and fled the scene. The community were shocked by the crime, with David and Betty's families commenting that neither of them had any enemies and that they had no idea who could have done such a thing. It wasn't until months later when police and news stations began receiving cryptic and taunting letters that things became clear. The letters were from a man calling himself the Zodiac Killer, and he took responsibility for the Faraday and Jensen crime. He also sent cryptic ciphers that were impossible to crack. The pattern continued with the Zodiac claiming at least 7 more victims between 1968 and 1969. Police believe that the Zodiac is responsible for many more crimes. However, they're unable to link him conclusively due to a lack of evidence. As of 2021, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies are still no closer to catching the Zodiac Killer, and everything we know about him comes from his strange, coded letters. One letter provided us with a haunting quote and gives us a peek into the mind of a deranged man. He said, quote, "I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. The best part of it is that when I pass, I'll be reborn in paradise and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collection for the afterlife." Number 4. The name Anatoly Onoprienko conjures up feelings of fear and dread for the residents of Ukraine. Between 1988 and 1996, they were terrified by Anatoly during his crime spree, and when he finally was caught, he gave a statement that is almost too chilling to be real. Onoprienko was born in 1959 in Ukraine, which at the time was part of the USSR. From the moment he was born, Onoprienko's life was marred with tragedy. At just 1 year old, he was placed into an orphanage following the passing of his mother. Onoprienko carried a lot of resentment for this, as his father was still alive and was caring for his older brother. He began to harbor feelings of hatred towards families and lived with the belief that he was unwanted and was denied as a child. This rage would fuel his crimes in later years. As he grew older, his hatred toward his family unit grew until one day he snapped. In 1989, Onoprienko attacked a family as they sat in their car on the side of the highway. He chillingly recalled, quote, "I just shot them. It's not that it gave me pleasure, but I felt this urge. From then on, it was almost like some game from outer space." This was not the first time that Onoprienko claimed multiple victims in one swoop. Earlier in 1989, he and his accomplice, named Sergei, burglarized a home that belonged to a family of 10. The pair had intended only to burglarize the house. However, in the heat of the moment, they changed their minds and decided to attack all 10 members of the family, leaving no survivors. After this, Onoprienko carried on this pattern of finding families and attacking them. In total, he claimed the lives of 52 people and left nearby residents terrified. As the victim count mounted, so did the pressure on the SBU and Ukrainian police forces. They launched a wide-scale manhunt to find the person responsible, and after months of searching through records and analyzing evidence, they finally captured the man, Anatoly Onoprienko. At first, Onoprienko denied any involvement in the crimes. However, after searching his home, police found 122 items that had been removed from the victims' homes, along with weapons that matched evidence taken from the crime scenes. He knew that the game was up and confessed to shooting 8 people. Later on, he changed his story and confessed to being responsible for 52 murders between 1989 and 1996, and told police that voices had commanded him to do so and that he wanted to destroy families. In his confession, he told police, quote, "I feel absolutely no pity for those people I have killed. I'm a better person than any of them." He was given the death penalty, but this would later be switched to life in prison. His victims never truly saw justice, as he passed away in 2013 in his cell from a heart attack. Number 3. You underestimate me. I am Germany's greatest killer. I've put others, both here and abroad, to shame. These are the chilling words of Rudolf Pleil, a German serial killer who was active in West Germany between 1946 and 1947. Pleil, like many other men in this world at the time, served in World War II in some capacity. He had managed to escape being drafted into the armed forces by becoming a shipboy on a merchant ship headed for South America. This service was short-lived after it was found that Pleil was stealing. He was taken back to Germany and served a year in prison for his petty crimes. This wasn't the first time that Pleil had committed a crime. He later admitted that as a child, he regularly smuggled items across the German and Czechoslovakian borders. Pleil himself recalled that he witnessed acts of violence and cruelty as a result of World War II, and that these experiences all contributed to the crimes that he would commit as an adult. After serving his sentence, he was released and reassessed for military duty. However, he was deemed to be medically unfit because he suffered from epileptic seizures. Pleil was disheartened at the news and desperately tried to find other ways to be involved in the war. He didn't want to be involved in the war effort to defend the motherland like most young people at the time. Pleil simply wanted to see combat so that he could experience and be responsible for human suffering firsthand. Pleil was delighted when he was hired as a policeman. He finally had the power and authority that he craved. In that moment, he believed he could do anything he wanted, and this is when he began claiming the lives of innocent people. Eva May was Pleil's first victim in March of 1946. He attacked her with an axe and disposed of her body in a canal. Eva's remains were found sometime later. However, as she had been placed in the water, West German police had little evidence to work with. As the months passed, West German police began to notice a disturbing pattern. Women were being found on the border of East and West Germany. Their injuries and wounds were the same, and it appeared to be the work of one man. However, despite lengthy investigations, they were unable to capture the man responsible. It would be by sheer coincidence that West German authorities would finally capture the man responsible for 10+ women found on the border. In 1947, Pleil was found guilty of manslaughter after he attacked a salesman while he was heavily intoxicated. This case made headline news in West and East Germany and prompted one of Pleil's surviving victims to come forward. She identified Pleil as the man who had helped her cross the border before taking her to a secluded spot and attacking her. She told police that she faked being unconscious until Pleil left the scene, and that when he had gone, she collected her things and ran home. This testimony was enough for West German authorities to look into Pleil as a suspect, and he would ultimately confess to 9 murders. During his appearance in court, he regularly interrupted the judge and prosecution team to remind them that his victim count was in fact 25, not 9. He addressed the court, saying, "It's 25. I had 25 victims, but they can only find 9 bodies. You underestimate me. I am Germany's greatest killer. I put others both here and abroad to shame. What I did is not such a great harm, with all these surplus women nowadays. Anyway, I had a good time." Pleil was found guilty of 9 murders, as well as the manslaughter of the salesman, and sentenced to life in prison. During his time, he regularly wrote to prison officials and other prominent government figures, offering his services, telling them that he would help dish out capital punishment in exchange for a lesser sentence. These requests were all denied. Number 2. Alexander Pichushkin, also known as the Chessboard Killer, is one of Russia's most prolific serial killers, coming second only to the infamous Andrei Chikatilo and Mikhail Popkov. Between 1999 and 2006, Pichushkin targeted vulnerable people in Russia's Bitsa Park. His obsession with murder led him to want to claim enough victims to fill a chessboard, and he was arrested by police after they found a chessboard in his apartment, complete with the names of 48 victims in each square. His goal was to claim the lives of 64 people, so he could fill his chessboard, but thankfully, he was caught before he could complete it. Pichushkin had suffered a head injury, and as a result, he was placed into a special school for children with disabilities. His mother decided to place him into the school after she noticed that his injuries caused him to become more aggressive, and he had poor impulse control. He would sometimes become physically violent towards her and other children, and required extra attention. He resented his mother for placing him in this school, and his peers did not take the transfer lightly either. He was bullied heavily by his old friends, who attended mainstream schools. It was during this time that Pichushkin's grandfather took him under his wing and regularly brought him along to play chess games at Bitsa Park in Russia. His grandfather was astounded at Pichushkin's natural talent and implored him to enter chess competitions held at the park. For Pichushkin, this time with his grandfather provided him with a much-needed break from the cruel world he was living in. However, when Pichushkin was transitioning into adulthood, his grandfather passed away, leaving him without the support network that he so desperately craved. The passing of his grandfather impacted him deeply, and after this, Pichushkin's rage began to surface once more. He no longer had his grandfather to guide him or distract him from his feelings of rage. In July of 1992, Pichushkin claimed his first victim by luring him into a secluded area of Bitsa Park with the promise of alcohol. He would then attack his victim and leave them in the park to be discovered days later. This pattern continued, with Pichushkin targeting vulnerable people, such as homeless people and women. He promised them free vodka before attacking them and either leaving their bodies in the park or placing them in a nearby sewer. This pattern continued for 14 years, with Russian authorities desperately trying to capture the man they had dubbed the Bitsa Park Maniac. It wouldn't be until 2006 that Pichushkin was finally arrested after he was captured on CCTV in the metro station with one of his victims. Bizarrely, Pichushkin boasted during his arrest that he had claimed 62 victims, and that he had beaten the record of Andrei Chikatilo. In total, Alexander Pichushkin was connected to just 49 cases, and police were unable to verify the other accounts given by Pichushkin. During his interview, he gave one of the creepiest serial killer quotes, saying, quote, "For me, life without murder is like life without food. I was the father of these people, since it was I who opened the door for them to another world." Alexander Pichushkin was sentenced to life in prison and is currently serving his sentence at the Polar Owl Penal Colony, an institution known for its harsh attitude towards prisoners. Number 1. With the release of the brand new Netflix documentary, The Sons of Sam: A Descent into Darkness, There has been a renewed interest into the case of David Berkowitz. Between 1976 and 1977, New York was haunted by a man they came to know as the Son of Sam. New York police poured all of their resources into capturing the elusive serial killer that ended with the arrest of David Berkowitz. Berkowitz's life had been filled with hardship. As a baby, he was adopted by the Berkowitz family, and when he was just 14, his adopted mother passed away. His father remarried. However, his new stepmother didn't get along with Berkowitz, calling him exhausting to deal with. Slowly but surely, the family unit fell apart, with Berkowitz resenting his stepmother for taking his dad away from him. His anger only grew after he discovered that his birth mother was in fact still alive and well, despite being told that she had passed away during childbirth. Berkowitz became confused and angry. He wondered why his adopted mother, who loved him so much, had lied to him, and why his birth mother didn't want him. The reunion with his birth mother was anything but rosy. The two didn't click, and Berkowitz left feeling rejected. Two of the most important women in his life had left and rejected him. Berkowitz internalized these feelings and concluded that he was unwanted by all women. As his mental health declined, he became angrier and angrier at women, and on July 29, 1976, he snapped. He shot Jody Valenti and Donna Loria while they were standing on their doorstep. Sadly, Jody passed away as a result of her injuries, while Donna was seriously injured but recovered. Berkowitz anticipated that police would be knocking down his door and taking him away for the crime that he had just committed, but that never happened. Berkowitz continued this pattern, amassing 15 victims in total, and was only caught due to a parking ticket. A witness recalled seeing a man with dark hair retrieving a parking ticket from his car close to the crime scene. After cross-referencing records, police came across the name David Berkowitz and decided to bring him in for questioning. Before Berkowitz could exit his apartment, the police found his car that contained weapons that matched those found at the crime scene, along with newspaper cuttings and detailed maps of the crime scenes. The police had seen enough, and the moment Berkowitz stepped outside of his apartment, he was arrested and taken in for questioning. Berkowitz knew that it was over. He had been captured, and now it was time to tell the truth. In his soft-spoken voice, he turned to the police and said, "I'm Sam." He went on to explain that a 6,000-year-old man spoke through his neighbor's dog and commanded him to commit the crimes. Disturbingly, he was quoted as saying, "I was literally singing to myself on my way home after the crime." The tension, the desire, had built up in such explosive proportions that when I finally pulled the trigger, all the pressures, the tensions, all the hatred just vanished, dissipated, but only for a short time. Berkowitz was found guilty of second-degree murder and ordered to 6 life sentences. He currently resides in a correctional facility and now describes himself as a born-again Christian. He also regularly corresponds with people who wrote to him in prison. However, he does not discuss his crimes, but preaches the word of God. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.